Hello, everyone. I'm going over my theme today. My theme today is change your perspective. And I'm going to go over these easy steps for you to understand what you need to be do, what you need to do in order to create a change, not just in your job, in your life, and even in your friends, in your relationships. First thing you need to do is change your environment. You are who you associate yourself with. The second step is don't complain. That shows a sign of weakness. The third thing is be a positive and productive person. The next step is always have an attitude that I can always do better. And lastly, always be open for positive feedback. And that's what I've learned in my life. I'm going to go with the first one. The first one is change your environment. You are who you associate yourself with. If you around broke people, you will be broke like them. If you're around positive and productive people, you will be like them as well. Sometimes in my life, when I was growing up around the military, everybody complained and they would always complain about that. Oh, they didn't have enough money. I'm always broke. I'm always broke. I learned one thing about those people who always broke. They never saved money. And the thing is, and when I saw that, that was not for me, and I had to change my environment and not be around those people because they were just as soon as the money comes in, it was gone like that. If that's their perspective, I understand that that's the way they want to live, and they said, "Oh, Henry, we have this money, we're not gonna live forever. We can't take it with us." That's understandable. But that's another perspective, and unfortunately, that's not how wealthy and rich people think. Poor people think that, oh, if I get this money, it's going. They spend it and it's gone in 3 days. A rich person saves their money and saves for like 2 or 3 generations ahead. But that's a class for another day. And so, with that said, the next step is do not complain. Now, I know it sounds easier said than done. I know everybody likes to vent, but if you're in your job and you kind of say, "Man, I hate this job. I hate this job. I want to quit. I want to put in my 2 weeks notice and stuff like that." If you're constantly negative if you're constantly negative around people and say, "Man, I hate this job. I hate this job. I don't like being here. I don't," and then some people will even get tired of it and to the point where, you know what, we're going to find a replacement for this person. If he keeps saying he wants to jump, we're going to make him jump for him. And I've seen that happen where people constantly say, "Oh, I hate the job. I'm going to put in my 2 weeks notice," and they just go right ahead and find your replacement. I learned in my life that people who always complain, they always complain about either one or two things. They complain about the people at the top, or they complain about not having enough money. I learned one thing about when I was around broke people, that they always complain about the people at the top. And when they got into these business meetings and stuff like that, when we had a meeting and the president got up, who all of them talked about him, and then they turned around and said, "Who, anybody here has any questions?" And the people who talked about him, and I was like waiting for them to actually say, what they were actually going to say, and nobody said anything. But as a productive person, a positive and productive person, he doesn't talk down about. They don't talk down about the people at the top. They go become the people at the top, because if you see what's wrong, you try your best to fix it. That's what I've learned in my life. So when I see people complaining about people at the top, complaining about these people, I'm in my job and I do my job. And nobody says that, "Oh yeah, you talk down about people," because talking down about people, it just brings about a very negative connotation. And people develop a negative connotation about you when you talk down about people. So I try not to talk down about people. I always try to be positive and try to create a good environment. The next step is be a very positive and productive person. So what that means is if you have a job, you try to knock out the test. You try to knock out. It doesn't matter if it's big, small, or whatever. You knock out the test. Same way with my job. I understand that I have a job. No, I know the details of my job. And sometimes people don't even ask me, "I need to do this, I need to do that," because I already know it already get it done. And a lot of times, you have to create a good environment for yourself. When you come into work and you're ready to work, even though yes, you don't want to do it, but the thing is, you have to have a love and a passion for what you do. And if you don't have a love and a passion for what you do, you need to find another job. That's what I learned in my life. But I learned that working at a company, I understand that yes, the job can be rigorous and maybe the job can be very tiring. But I do try to be a very positive, productive person by showing up to work on time, doing tasks, and if I don't know something, ask questions like, "Hey, what can I do to help, or what can I do to make it better?" That in itself shows that you're willing to work and willing to do the job. A lot of people don't have that. They just like, I'm here, and then they turn around and they're like, oh my goodness, and they're looking at the clock and they're saying, oh, I'm looking at the clock because I'm just waiting for the time to go by. That's not, and employers see that, supervisors and general managers, they see that, and they're like, I need to get rid of the dead one. Now now I'll give you an example. We had a couple of guys in our in our workforce, and we would give them tasks, and they would take 4 hours to do it. And I'm like, come on, it didn't take that long to do it. And so, with that said, um, the GM was the general manager. He had to make certain decisions. These guys, they talk. These other people here, they constantly talk and they do not work. And so when people, they take note of things, everything that you say and do. And I learned that in the workforce. I learned that you have to be a very positive and you have to be very productive. And if you're not a very productive person, you're going to find yourself in the employment line and not having many job opportunities. With that said, the next step is always have an attitude, I can always do better. When you do better in life, that means that don't just let's say, oh, I'm better than this. Always try to think of the next step ahead. You know what I'm saying? Don't be arrogant. What that said is, you just gotta, what can I do to make myself better? What can I do? Always have that attitude. What can I do? I had a situation where I was with a friend. A couple of people at my job, and I created a positive environment, and a lot of people didn't want to do the job. So with that said, I brought donuts and I brought things just to boost the morale a little bit. Always having an attitude. Yes, the job is not that good, but I try to make it better, and that's what we have to do as an employee. You have to make the job better, because a lot of times, I would say 75% or more, give or take, whatever the case may be. A lot of people do not want to do their job, but they have to understand that majority of the people here in the United States live paycheck to paycheck. I would say 95% of people live paycheck to paycheck. But with that said, that it's hard to find a job within reason. And so therefore, a lot of people, they just work for a paycheck. I'm just working, I'm just here for a paycheck. But don't always have that attitude. Yes, you're here for a paycheck, but yes, you want to keep that paycheck. I was always taught this when I was coming up. You need to learn to do your job, or you won't have a job, and that's what a lot of people think. Now, when I was in the military, when I was a little bit younger, I had that attitude that that I can be better than everybody else, and I didn't take any advice from people. And with that said, it closed the doors for a lot of opportunities, and I could have gotten promoted, but I didn't. And I made a lot of mistakes in my life because I had an attitude thinking that I was better than everybody else, and and when I ignored people, it really hurt me, and a lot of people, they just didn't talk to me. And had to learn to be humble, and learn to interact with people better, and have the attitude that I don't know everything. And with that said, you have to humble yourself and say, hey, can I, humble yourself, learn, and have an attitude that you're willing to work with other people. And sometimes, yes, dealing with people is pretty hard in the workforce, and that's understandable. Which leads me to my next topic, which is always be open to positive feedback, and also be thick-skinned when somebody tells you what you're doing wrong within that reason. Now, don't get me wrong. If you're doing a task or you're doing a job, and some people say, hey, you need to do it this way, just be open to it and don't take it as harsh. They're just trying to help you. Understand, I have taken a lot of criticism in my life. Some people say, you should do it this way instead of doing it that way. And I said, no, I'm not going to do it that way. In that light, I understand that a lot of times that when I lashed out because I thought I was better than other people, and I thought that what I did was right all the time, and in reality, I was wrong. And I learned in my life that if 4 or 5 people say the exact same thing about you, it's not a coincidence, it's the truth. And I have to realize that, to learn to take positive feedback, and also learn to corrective criticism as well. And when you do that, it opens the door to say, okay, if I did it this way, maybe I can do it better this way. So it's not a bad thing. It's actually a good thing, because they're seeing the potential in you, and they're also showing you how to better do things. Because not everybody doesn't do everything right. And with that said, there are people who have the experience, who actually in the job force, and we all make mistakes in life. We all make decisions in life. But with that said, you have to make the right decision if you want to go for it. There's an old saying that I said, there's good leaders and there's bad leaders. The difference between them is the decisions that they make in this life. If you make good decisions, you'll go far. If you make bad decisions, you won't go as far. And that's what I've learned in my life. Learn to take positive criticism, and also be thick-skinned when you're getting corrective criticism in this life. So I hope that I've helped somebody, and I hope I've changed your perspective in this life. And so the first one is change your environment. You are who you associate yourself with. The next one is don't complain. Just go ahead and knock it out, and be a very positive person. The next one is be a very positive, productive person in this life and in the workforce. And the next one is always have the attitude that I can always do better. And then the last one is always be open to criticism, positive and constructive criticism. I hope that I've helped somebody, and I hope that you have taken this and maybe use this in your arsenal, and actually it will actually help you. And if there's anything that I've left out that maybe somebody could have said little things, or maybe can add to it, that would be great. I would love to hear people's feedback. This is Henry.